Great. Thank you, Nomi. And hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on serving appealing, high-quality summer meals during COVID-19. Thank you, as always, for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. Like Nomi mentioned, my name is Clarissa Hayes, and I'm a Senior Policy Analyst here at TRAC. And if you are joining us for the first time for our webinars, we host these every Thursday on opportunities to expand participation and access to the federal nutrition programs. We have three amazing guest speakers joining us today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation on this very timely topic. Serving high-quality summer meals has always been a critical strategy for drawing more children to summer sites, supporting their overall health and nutrition, and also helping to reduce food waste. There have definitely been many lessons learned around this pre-pandemic, but we do know that COVID-19 has definitely shifted and changed the way that many programs operate. Many schools and community sponsors are utilizing different meal service options to meet the growing need during the public health emergency, including off-site meals, serving multiple meals at one time that must be stored and prepped at home, and even bulk items. This has definitely introduced some new challenges, but also opportunities for innovation. Maintaining high-quality meals is a win-win for programs as we head into the summer months and beyond. You know this summer won't be normal, and many children still won't be meeting at sites, but we hope this webinar leaves you with some new ideas or things to consider around meal quality and appeal, with the understanding, of course, that everyone's capacity is different and many continue to operate under extremely unprecedented circumstances. So let's get started, and we'll take a look at what we're going to be chatting about today. But before that, we would love to hear from you and who is joining us today. So in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, can you just put in there, what steps are you taking to maintain the quality and appeal of the summer meals you serve during COVID-19? So we will give you just a minute to think about this, and feel free to add this to the chat as we go along, but we would just love to know what's happening in your community and what you have planned. All right, well, feel free to keep those going into the chat box. We're going to go ahead and move on, and I'm going to quickly cover who we have joining us today. So like I mentioned, I'm going to start out, my name is Clarissa at TRAC. I'm going to start us out with a brief overview of the landscape right now and some different resources from our organization. From there, Heather Tory from the Burlington School Food Project is going to talk about what they're doing in Vermont. Next, we'll hear from Sarah Eugene. She is the Extended School Meal Coordinator at the Minneapolis Public School District. And last but not least, we'll hear from Jennifer Orozco, the Director of Nutrition Services at Natomas Unified School District. And we will leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So if you have any questions as we go along for any of our speakers, feel free to use that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. All right. So before I dive in, I did want to quickly give a quick refresher on the waivers that are available right now. And I know that many of you are familiar with these at this point and probably are sick of hearing about them, but in case you aren't, USDA has made available many program flexibilities since last March when the pandemic started, so that operators could continue to serve meals even in light of what is happening. These waivers have definitely been critical to ensuring access and have had a hand in drastically changing the way that many schools and sponsors are preparing and serving meals. So most of the waivers here are available now through September 30th, 2021. They were just recently extended back in March, which we were very excited about and worked with many partners to encourage USDA to do this. And they do remain an option, obviously, through the summer months. So those waivers include the option to do summer meals year-round, so they have been available through the 2020 to 2021 school year. Meals can be consumed off-site, so they don't have to meet that congregate model, which is usually required for summer meals. In many states, the area eligibility threshold has either been lowered or reduced completely. There is flexibility around mealtime service, and that's what allows programs to serve up to a week's worth of meals at one time rather than just one meal per day. Parents and guardians can pick up meals, and children don't have to be present. And then there was flexibility with the meal pattern. And I do want to flag that the summer food service program part of this does still expire on June 30th, 21. So that hasn't been extended through the summer months like Seamless Summer and the school meals waivers have been. So I wanted to just set the scene for that. So we're all kind of familiar with the differences that are impacting this summer compared to previous summers when it comes to meal quality. All right, so I wanted to quickly, again, just set the scene for meal quality. And we know that meal quality and high quality meals can definitely mean many things. And when we talk about it, we frequently think about it as a combination of ensuring meals are appealing and appetizing, as well as nutritious. So I'm sure everybody knows that the meals provided through the summer nutrition programs must meet federal nutrition standards, but there definitely is an opportunity for sponsors to go beyond those by, for example, providing more fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains and lean proteins, and less juice. So like I mentioned earlier, there have been other best practices that have been implemented by sponsors and schools to increase the quality and appeal, and many of these have been talked about as best practices for summer. And of course, COVID does change things, but I did want to just highlight some of those things that we know have worked in the past. So a big one is considering variety and cultural preferences. There's also been a huge shift to incorporating local fresh foods, and this is easier during the summer months because we know that's the peak growing season for many. So taking that farm to school and really amplifying it during summertime. Another key piece that we've heard about is surveying children and parents on preferences and what they'd like to see changed or improved. For those sponsors who use vendors, really working to strengthen the bids and contracts so you're getting the meals that you want to serve to the children that come to your sites. We've also seen a lot of innovation around allowing children to have a say in their meals around customizing either through condiments or maybe offering different options if possible. Another key piece of this that we don't really talk about much is just considering packaging and the visual appeal of the meals. We oftentimes hear that you eat with your eyes before your stomach, so making sure that the meals look appealing and colorful and fresh is a really key part of that. Adding nutrition education activities to go in tandem with meals can also be a really great component. And then, of course, during normal times, a great way to reduce food waste is to really utilize policies that help with that, such as the traveling apple and shared tables. Obviously, we know a lot of programs are serving non-congregate right now, so those really aren't in play as much, although things might look a little bit different during this summer. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight. Again, we are in a different time, but we believe that many of these components can still be really useful during COVID-19. All right, next slide. And I won't take up too much more time. I really did want to just highlight some of our resources that we've created and updated over the last 10 years on serving high quality summer meals, because we really do see this as a really critical component of increasing access and participation in these programs. We want to make sure that kids want to come back to sites and are enjoying the meals that they get during the summertime. So the first one that I want to highlight quickly is our Summer Standards of Excellence, and this is a tool that allows you to evaluate sites based on food quality, site environment, and outreach. So you can, if you want to, you can use this criteria to look at your sites and have them either at a gold, silver, or bronze level, depending on the meals that are being served. And we know that many groups have actually taken this and adapted it to be a recognition or award system in their own communities, which really can help incentivize high quality meals. The next one that I wanted to touch on is a guide for summer food sponsors on purchasing high quality summer meals. So this really, like I mentioned, digs into strengthening contract language, improving vendor communication, and then increasing competition on a bid, which for some who maybe aren't working with vendors, this might not be useful, but for those that are, we have sample language and case studies from different partners. And then last, I mentioned farm to school. We know this can be such an important part of summer meals. So we do have Fresh from the Farm using local foods in the after school and summer program. And it just really dives into different ways to accomplish that depending on your capacity and how big your program is. So I did want to highlight those resources. And then on the next slide, we are going to go ahead and I am going to turn it over to our first speaker joining us from the Burlington Public Schools / Burlington School Food Project, Heather Tory. So Heather, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what your program looks like during COVID-19 and the focus on making sure meals are high quality and appealing. So Heather, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be able to share all of the work that we've done as a team to get nutritious and really appealing meals to our kids in the Burlington School District. It has been a wild ride. I'm sure everybody on this call can relate to that. And to be honest, there's more that we have done than we can frankly cover in 10 minutes, so I will do my best. If we go to the next slide, most of my pictures are not there, but that's okay. There it is. I didn't have a ton of time to put together something really comprehensive, so I tried to capture as much as I could to remind myself of what I wanted to talk about with you all today by selecting just a few pictures. And I'll start by saying where we were about a year ago. When we got the news that schools were going to go remote for the rest of the school year, we didn't have very much time to flip the switch and change our model of service. We were, however, really lucky because Burlington School District has done summer meals for years now. So we were able to jump into the summer meal swing of things with relatively, it was not easy, but it was certainly easier than our folks that have never done summer meals before in the state. So for that, I feel like we were really lucky. We partnered with the Parks and Rec Department and other departments within our school district to staff a whole bunch of parent pickups across the city. And we did that all summer using prepackaged tray meals, which I'm sure you've seen floating around on various accounts. They're pretty common. And we did that all summer. And what we noticed is that when we went through the summer with this model, gradually our participation was decreasing. And one of the biggest challenges we had was how to keep the variety and quality of those prepackaged meal trays really fun and exciting. It was one of our biggest challenges because in quote unquote normal times, the Burlington School Food Project prides itself on providing some really innovative and flavorful customized meals for our kids. So it was definitely challenging. And to be honest, our shift to bulk meals, which is what is mostly represented on the screen you're looking at now, was born from discussions of how we were going to provide take-home meals for kids when we came back to school in the fall. And I really just couldn't get beyond this feeling that it was not appropriate to have kids have to identify that they needed to take some of these trade meals home. And I had heard that folks had been doing bulk meals across the city or across the country. And I just rolled with it. And we are miles away from where we were back in September when we first started this, but we took full advantage of all of the waivers and flexibilities that were out there for meal service. And I called our state agency probably more times than they would have liked, just to make sure that I understood what they all meant, because this model of service is completely different from what we normally do. It's almost backwards in a way how we plan, in that we don't start with our menu, we start with a pack list and sort of back into a menu from there. So as you can see on the most prominent picture there this is actually the meal kit that we distributed yesterday. And the way that I figure out what goes into a pack list is with a very exciting spreadsheet that I spared you from having to look at in this presentation. But I use that to figure out how many grains, proteins, fruits and vegetables, and servings of milk we need to include in each family meal kit. I hate calling them food boxes, which is what they often get reduced to, but to make sure that we're meeting all of the program requirements for the school meal product. So that was a lot. I'm happy to answer any of those questions about how I go through that process another time. Feel free to call or email me. I'll talk meal kits all day long, but what I have loved most about this process is that because we're handling so many meals in one unit, like one box equals 7 days worth of breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack. We won't be able to do supper and snack over the summer, but for now we're still doing it. The economy of scale makes it so much easier to send really high quality fresh fruits and vegetables home and local items. So if you're considering, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner some nondescript boxes with some, you can probably barely see it, but those are all cases of mini maple syrups. We're Vermont, so I've got to put something mapley in there. We sent those home last month for the Harvest of the Month program, and we bought 750 little bottles of syrup to include in our family meal kits from one of our school teachers, actually. And since then, I've called a bunch of local farms to give them the heads up that we're going to be doing these meal kits throughout the summer and that we'd love to purchase anything that we can within our state. So if you're considering doing something like this summer and you've perhaps never done summer meals before, I would encourage you to contact any farms that you'd like to, start the conversation with, because they're planning their growing season now. So this is a huge opportunity to provide not only really awesome quality local ingredients to your families, but also to support the businesses in your area. And it's just been such a blessing to have this. I know it sounds weird, like we're in a pandemic and this is a blessing, but it really was a silver lining through all of this. It's been a ton of work. You can see in the top right corner there, all of those boxes. It's like a sea of boxes in our cafeteria every day. But the feedback that we've gotten from our community in our family meal kit survey has just been so encouraging. We have people that have told us time and time again that they are just so grateful for this program, and that the foods that we put in these meal kits each week are very accessible. And like, we put a mango in last week. It's really a wonderful opportunity. And I feel like I just rambled for probably 10 minutes. So I am happy to pass it along if I'm over time.
Oh, you're great. Thank you so much, Heather. And I'm sure we will have a lot of questions come in for you, but I love your idea around just partnerships. And I mean, I think when we think about school nutrition, it can be a little targeted, but your point around, having partnerships with farmers, knowing that the impact of COVID-19 is a lot broader than on school meals, and just facilitating that, I think it's really powerful. So yeah, the boxes, like that picture on the top, is just beautiful with all the different colors. So we will keep an eye in the Q&A. If you have any questions for Heather and the work that's being done in Vermont, feel free to add that to the chat box, the Q&A, and we will get to that next. But at this point, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker. So we're going to hear from Sarah Eugene, who is the Extended School Meals Coordinator at the Minneapolis Public Schools. So Sarah, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. So I'm just going to start with a basic overview of Minneapolis Public Schools. We have about 35,000 students. About 55% of those students are eligible for educational benefits, or what you might refer to as free or reduced meals. And about 68% of our students identify as students of color. Pre-COVID, this is all pre-COVID data. This past year, as you guys know, has been a whirlwind, so don't have a lot to base things on now. But pre-COVID, we did about 56,000 meals and snacks daily, divided up between your regular school meals of breakfast and lunch. We also participate in FFEP, or the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, as well as after-school snack and supper. Our serving schools or sites are divided into 70 sites, and we have one large central kitchen that sort of acts as the main hub, if you will, for our 70 sites. So again, pre-COVID, 35 of our schools are what we call kitchen sites, where they can cook from scratch, and 35 are what we call satellite sites. So they don't have full cooking capability, and so a lot of their food gets prepped at the central kitchen and is sent out to be heated at the schools. 70 salad bars, again, pre-COVID, it would give us nightmares right now, right, to talk about COVID and salad bars. So those are not currently in operation. But then 38 of our schools are also CEP. And CEP, if you're not familiar with that, just means that those schools offer no-cost meals to all students enrolled, regardless of if they qualify individually for a free or reduced meal. Next slide. So we're going to take it back a little bit to March. So similar to what Heather just talked about, we kind of had to pivot here on a dime. We are very lucky that our central kitchen was sort of set up for this. I don't know if mass production is the right word, but just the production of a lot of food boxes. And so we were able to pivot towards these meal boxes fairly quickly last spring. And we had about 40 different sites set up throughout the city. So not just at our schools, but we also took advantage of partnerships with local churches, parks and recreation centers, that sort of thing, anywhere really well known in the community. And what we did is, to start, we parked school buses at every pickup site, just so we could tell folks to look for the school bus, right? Because it can be kind of intimidating to go up to a school you don't know which door you're supposed to go to, which entrance. Some of these schools can be really large. They have 4 or 5 different parking lots. And so the school bus was, sort of the way that we showed families that this is where you're going to come and pick up your food. So the 3 photos on the left there are really at our central kitchen with the box packaging, and then your 3 photos kind of on the bottom and then on the right are of our staff out at our sites serving the food boxes. Okay, next slide. Oh, the pictures are a little bit jumbled, but so you'll see some of the contents that are inside our meal boxes. We struggled a little bit with how can we ensure that our meals are of high quality, are fresh, are flavorful, and are easy for kids and families to prepare. There is some benefit to, of course, doing things like bagged rice or dried beans and things like that, but we tried to take into consideration what families would have time to prepare while they're in the midst of this pandemic. That can mean a lot of things for a lot of people. It could mean full-time working from home. Now you're trying to do distance learning with your kids. And so what can we provide that would be high quality, that can be prepared very quickly? And we did take advantage of Farm to School, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, but similar to how Heather said that you have to put something maple in Vermont, we always, we're in the Midwest, so we're dairy country, right? So our Farm to School doesn't always just mean fruits and vegetables, but it does mean dairy farms, for example, where we were able to take advantage of a Farm to School program with our local yogurt, and then we can utilize that as a meat alternate component. The 2 slides that are a little bit scrambled, it's hard to see, but most of our students have had the option to return to in-person learning, and so those are 2 of the meals that we're currently serving right now. And so our youngest learners, are pre-K through 5, returned in February, and they're doing a variety of different things, either eating in the classrooms in pods, or they are eating in the cafeteria with seating charts. And our high schoolers have come back this week, and our 6 to 8 learners are coming back next week. So we're kind of in the middle here with the hybrid, where we have about 60% of our students have chosen in-person learning, and so they're eating in the schools now, and then we have about 40% that have chosen distance, and so we are still continuing the meal boxes for those students as well. Next slide. So summer 2021, we have sort of a 3-pronged approach. We have our summer school sites, which is going to be in person, so that's going to be your very typical breakfast and lunch. What do you expect? Almost as I'm doing air quotes. I know you guys can't see me, but as normal as we can expect, right? For breakfast, we typically do a grab and go. And lunch, we have hot and cold entree options. We're also going to have our community-based sites that, as of now, are planning on in-person programming. So this might include partners like parks and rec centers, libraries, day camps, things like that. These sites have ready-to-eat picnic meals, and we also have 2 mobile units, one that is a food truck that serves hot meals, and one that is what we call our food bus that serves cold meals. And we try to maximize our food access by sending these to locations that don't have a standalone site, if you will. So maybe a park and rec center that doesn't have a recreation building that's staffed, so there aren't folks there that can provide meals, for example. We're also going to continue our bundled meals and home delivery. So a little bit what I just talked about, Mailbox pickup locations. As of right now, we have a breakfast and lunch box, and we also have what we call a super snack box. It is a snack-like meal that we claim as a supper under the CFP program, and that won't continue in the summer, but we are offering it right now. We do strategically place those throughout the city. Right now, we have 6 pickup spots, so down from our original 40, but with the return to sort of in-person life, we've tried to find that balance. And we do have home delivery available for our bundled meals. And how we sort of handle that is families put in a request form online, and then our team of our district social workers sort of reviews the request, reaches out to the family and finds out how we can be most helpful in getting that family access to food, and that if that involves home delivery, then that family is signed up for that. Next slide, please. Just at a really brief example of a summer menu here. This would be for our learners that are actually in person. For breakfast, we do 1 entree option, and I don't know, it's kind of hard to see it. I should have made it a little bigger, but we typically do a grab and go. So the 1 entree option is going to be your grain, your meat alternate with a fruit, and then we have an orange juice and a milk, and the students get to select a drink. So it's sort of our modified version of offer versus serve. 2 entree options for lunch, and 1 lunch entree option is always meatless. That's one of our biggest requests, and I know meatless isn't something that meets the USDA requirements of, accommodations for a disability, but we've chosen to do that just because of the feedback that we've gotten. Focus on fresh fruits and vegetables, especially maximizing the summer season in Minnesota. It's frozen, 11 months out of the 12 months of the year, so we try to take advantage of our 1 month that is warm in the summer. For this, we're using minimal waivers, but when we get to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our perfect. No, you can go on to the next one. So this would be our community.
I also want to, Sarah, I'm so sorry. This is Clarissa. I want to say that we somehow, the slides got a little scrambled from what you sent in. So for everybody who's listening in, I am going to just quickly put a link in the chat in case you want to see those as you're speaking through them. But I did want to say that is completely on us, and I'll stick that in the chat now so people can follow along. So Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks. So our community site menu, I know Clarissa mentioned you eat with your eyes. So we do try to make these as appealing as possible. Picnic meals can be boring, so sort of spice it up with bright colors. We do try some ready-to-eat salads. And then that bottom picture with the food bus, again, it's pre-COVID, so giving us some COVID anxiety with how close folks are standing together, but we do plan on using that. It's really sort of a walking billboard, if you will, for our program. And it really helps bring the community in when they see that food bus. Next slide. And then our bundled meal box menu, just an example of what we'll continue to do for the summer. So again, ready to eat or heat options, where we talk about what's easy for our families to take advantage of during these times. Again, that focus on fresh fruits and vegetables and farm to school. You'll see there's a little tractor next to our farm to school items, and that helps families identify what came from the farm. For this program, we are using the non-congregate dining waiver as well as parent guardian pickup, and it just has been really helpful to sort of streamline that food access for our families. Next slide. Just some tips for our meal boxes. We've had a lot of success with doing videos and an unboxing video, if you will. We have a chef that does some actual cooking demonstrations with our recipes. And know your food, know your farmer. So introducing our farmers so our families can see who is growing their food and where it's coming from. And then a really important one for us is bulk packaging if possible. So when we first started, we were doing, if this was a 7-day meal box, we were doing 7 little containers of carrots. And the negative feedback was just that it's so much waste, and they were right? So how can we minimize the packaging while still maximizing what we're offering within this program? And is there another slide? I can't remember. Nope, that's it. Okay, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And sorry for those tech difficulties. For everybody listening in, again, I did stick a link to her beautiful slides in the chat box, and we'll make sure that those get incorporated into the slide deck that we send around. But thank you so much, Sarah, for all that great information. I love the idea of doing an unboxing. I feel like that definitely appeals to teenagers and the influencers and all those good things. So that's a really great and neat idea. All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn it over to our last speaker. Jennifer Orozco is with the Natomas Unified School District in California. So I'm going to turn it over to her at this time.
Hello, thank you. Thank you guys for having me today. Again, my name is Jennifer Orozco. I'm the director with the Nutrition Services Department with Natomas Unified in Sacramento, California. You know, as we heard from everybody else, from Heather and Sarah, since last March, things have definitely been chaotic, and you never know what to expect moving forward. And even in the beginning, you know, when we first heard when school was going to shut down for potentially a couple of days, we quickly were asked to provide meals for students that would be home the next day while we cleaned classrooms and things like that. And that the few days turned into us moving into our summer feeding model and that style of service. So we were quickly able to adjust and get into the summer feeding style. Next slide. As you can see here, we went from that. Those kits included our breakfast and lunch. At that time, we were just doing breakfast and lunch for meals for students to pick up. We provide meals at 15 locations. All of our locations had, with the waivers that we were able to get, we were able to service all 15 school sites. And again, we quickly went into summer feeding mode and provided meals at all the sites. Next slide. In May, we added supper, snack, and weekends. So we were only serving Monday through Friday, breakfast and lunch. And in May, we switched over to weekends and supper and snack. And from there, this is our weekend build here, where we were building off meals, the 3-day meals for students. So participation wasn't as high when we first started out, and it began to pick up, of course, when we included the weekend supper, snack. So we were giving breakfast, lunch, supper, snack for 3 days at this time. Next slide. From there, it went to us receiving books and produce boxes. We did work with a lot of people, or a lot of agencies were reaching out to see how they can help as we were servicing students. We tried to keep the menu consistent. In the beginning, when we were doing our summer style, we did a lot of packaged items. As midsummer came and we were able to get waivers in place and kind of got into a groove of things, version 47 of the service style model, we were able to include more of a traditional menu, what the students were used to. As it prolonged, it was kind of unclear of how long we would be serving this way. So we did go back to, you can go to the next slide. We did go back to serving a more traditional style menu, where we were serving the meals cold for students to take home, but it was more consistent with what the students knew. On Wednesdays, kids knew that they were going to receive chicken nuggets. On Friday, they knew they were going to get pizza. So we went back to that service model, and that made it a lot easier without having to recreate menus. The packaging, next slide. The packaging has been not challenging, but it's been, an additional cost to kind of give it a better look, where everything's not just packaged and put in a bag. Here in this photo, we took our food truck out as much as possible. We try to go around to different sites to, this is Pizza Friday. So this is us at one of our sites handing out pizza on Friday, which what the students were used to. And these items were served hot. So when we take our food truck out, we're serving hot items, of course. and everything else is served cold then. Now our service model has changed. Next slide. I don't remember what photos were on here. Our service model has changed since then, now that students are transitioning back onto campus. They were going, let's see, it's changed quite often in the past few weeks. Students were, when they were welcomed back onto campus, they were doing alternate schedules. So there was 2 cohorts, A and B, which one would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the other Tuesday, Thursday, and then they would switch the next week. When that took place, we were providing meals. They were only on campus for a few hours a day. So we would give them at end of day their full bags with breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack to go home with. In addition, we have our drive-through service, as we call it, at all of our sites from 10:30 to 12:30 every day. So they were able to get their meals for the next day, and then they could come through the drive-through for the days that they were not on campus. This past week, we did start where students are going 5 days a week. So that kind of changed how we did service once again. At our elementary, students are receiving breakfast. Well, let me go back. So students are receiving a breakfast break. So students will start school. They're getting a breakfast break, probably about 9 o'clock. At that time, we're serving them their breakfast and their snack. When they're released from school, they're getting their grab-and-go supper and lunch to take home with them. And then they'll be back on campus for the next day to receive their breakfast and snack again. And in addition, we're still continuing with the curbside pickup for the community and those students who chose to stay with distance learning. At our high school levels, they're almost back to normal. They are receiving breakfast in the morning when they arrive to school. We did have to increase, the next slide. We did have to increase our mobile carts. This is an example of what we're using as mobile carts around campus. This is at all of our sites. So there are multiple points of service. As I was saying, at our high schools, there's 6 to 8 points of service, depending on what high school. And students are able to come in the morning and get their breakfast, hot breakfast, and then they go to class, they come and get their hot lunch, they go back to class, and at the end of the day, all of our mobile carts are out and they're able to pick up their supper and snack for the day. So again, this is the way that we're doing mobile carts right now. Many things have changed. Just this week alone is our first week going back on 5 days. So I'm sure after this week, after tomorrow, we'll be able to debrief and see what worked, what didn't work, and try and change things up for next week to see what we can improve on. With that, we've also early on in the pandemic, as I believe Heather stated, the farmers, it did have an impact on farmers and our local farmers that we utilize. So we do try and reach out and bring in as much as possible. We're very big on farm to school here. So we do try to reach out to them and use their items as much as possible. We were giving a lot of produce away in our weekend bags. In addition, with things coming back a little normal, and when we went back to a traditional style menu, we were able to continue our speed scratch and black bowl those items. We put them in black bowls, and it kind of gives the kids a little more normalcy, and it looks more appealing that way. So we have been able to keep our farm to school and keep our speed scratch intact by utilizing the same menu, just in different packaging and a different way of service. I think that is the last slide. Yes, that's it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. You are getting some laughs in the chat around your comment about it being version 47 of your meal service. And I think, yeah, just a testament to how creative and innovative and how so many school nutrition directors have been able to really change so quickly over the last year and a half. So thank you so much for sharing all of that great insight into our other two speakers as well. So we do have some time for questions, and I know at the beginning of the webinar we did ask for feedback on what folks are doing in their community. So I think I might just highlight a couple of those as we're waiting for questions to come in. So if you have any questions for our speakers today, feel free to use that Q&A function on your screen. And I will just say that the comments that we got definitely fit into a couple different themes. So a lot of input about suggestions from families. So conducting surveys at sites to get feedback around meal quality, asking about favorite meals, and then asking for suggestions. And then a couple more about surveying and using the meal service to get weekly feedback from your site supervisors. And then there's also a lot of mentions around using fresh produce, which is really exciting, and including more information for families around recipe packets and cookbooks and nutritional information flyers. Haven't heard the cookbooks yet, like an actual cookbook, so that's pretty exciting. And then someone did mention too, working really closely with their vendors to make sure that the fresh fruit and vegetables are fresh, and that they actually take pictures weekly of some of the items to view what is being delivered daily. So some really great insight in the chat. So thank you all for sharing that. And then I did want to, I've seen a couple questions come in, so we'll get to that. And of course, feel free to keep those coming in. So the first question, I believe is for Lindsay. It was during your presentation. And they were wondering about your meal service. So are the boxes going out once a week, or are there multiple days of pickup? And by Lindsay, I meant Heather. Heather, that question is for you.
Just gonna ask that. I was like, so we offer pickups twice a week. And we have found that that is helpful for families that have multiple kids, because as you can see from the pictures, that it's a lot of food. So oftentimes we'll have parents, if they've got, say, 4 kids, they'll come on Wednesday, pick up a couple, and then come on Friday to pick up the other 2. We also have some limited home delivery that we do on Thursdays for folks who can't come out to the meal kit pickups.
Great, thank you so much. And then we did have a question that I saw that you did answer, but I think this is interesting because I don't think we really talk about it often, and I would just love to hear your feedback on this. So the question was, do you provide different types of meal boxes for students who are experiencing homelessness? So do you want to talk a little bit about that process and how that looks? Because I think there is, there's an understanding that the boxes may not work for everybody and different capacity and all of that. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. All I can say is that, again, this has been a work in progress. So I forgot to mention that we do a daily, like we do either a classic with meat or a vegetarian meal kit every week, even though I think someone mentioned that it's not required, but it became apparent to us that a lot of our families were being housed in hotels this year. So I created a shelf-stable option, which was probably the hardest one to figure out, especially for proteins. So we sent a lot of peanut butter and nut butters out. We found sesame seeds, things like that, and worked with the school social workers to, on really like a case-by-case basis, to get those families what they needed. And oftentimes they would come and pick it up directly from our central kitchen to deliver to the hotels.
Great, thank you so much. And we just had another question come in, and I believe that this is geared towards Sarah. So the question is, what medium do you use to share the meal unboxings and cooking demonstrations? Is this done for every box? So I guess, yeah, how you're utilizing social media or how you're getting the word out.
So we certainly do use social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are the main 3 platforms that we do use. And we have, gosh, I can't remember her title off the top of my head. But I believe her title is a culinary supervisor, Chef Rebecca. And so she does this. It was every week whenever all families were in distance learning, but now that we've been back to school, the in-person learning has sort of taken away from that, so it's not as often, but we did try to do it every week, and now it's probably more sporadic, maybe like every other week or every 3rd week, but it was really well received, and actually, ironically, we had some families that created social media accounts as well and showed how they used the boxes, and so we had a lot of success with sharing those accounts too and having other families then follow those families as well.
That is such a neat idea. Yeah, peer-to-peer. That's great. Awesome. Well, we'll give it a couple more minutes to see if anybody else has any questions come through, and we can definitely end a little bit early. That's quite all right. I know everyone's really busy. So I'm going to ask Anobi if you could go to the next slide, and I'm just going to share a webinar that's happening next week. So if you are at all working on pandemic EBT in your state or want to know how to better support the families who are receiving those benefits, we do have a webinar on that. So it's going to be on how school districts can help ensure PEBT is a success. So that will be at 2 p.m. Eastern time next Thursday, and you can register for that at our website, prac.org/events. So I did want to make sure that everybody knows about that, and we usually do hold a webinar every Thursday. All right, so I don't see any additional questions coming through. I know that was a lot of wonderful information that was shared by our speakers. So I just want to quickly thank Heather, Sarah, and Jennifer for joining us today and talking about how this last year has looked and how you've been able to really still focus on making sure the meals that are going out are high quality and appealing and appetizing. And I know that I definitely learned a lot. So if anyone has any questions after the webinar wraps up, you can definitely feel free to reach out to me, and I would love to put you in touch with our speakers today. But we will go ahead and wrap up, and thank you again for joining, and we hope you can join us next week. All right, bye everyone.